Thanks to this history, you now have access to a new and improved family tree. The link is in the description. Arya Abdullah was born in 1866. She is Jalali and Kapurs Abdullah's second child. When she was a child, her father would have her and her sisters sing for their mother. As they grew older, their father would have them perform at special events. One day before a performance, her father was robbed. Kapurs caught the guy before he could get away and lectured him. The guy then ran off. Arya felt bad for him. She knew he was just barely getting by. She decided to go after him. She gave him some cash to support his family. He was incredibly grateful. It felt good helping someone in need. She ended up thinking about him all night. The day of her sister's wedding, she had seen him again. She gifted him a plate of food. He also had a gift for her. He told her how much she helped him and his family. He said his name was Mustafa and he was forever in debt to her. But Arya had other intentions. He later brought her to meet his family. His parents weren't impressed. They weren't fond of her wealth. His sisters didn't like her either. But Mustafa didn't care what his family thought of her. When Arya introduced him to her parents, her father was infuriated. He couldn't believe she was in courts with a thief. Jalali was more accepting. She didn't care about his class as long as he made Arya happy. Kapurs didn't want his daughter to marry into poverty. He forbid her from ever seeing him again. But his words wouldn't stop them from seeing each other. She would sneak him up into her room to keep her father from finding out. It wasn't long before her father set her up in an arranged marriage. The man's name was Jafar, and he was excited to make Arya his bride. Arya refused to marry a stranger when she was already in love with someone else. She stormed off, leaving both men infuriated. Kapurs was embarrassed of her behavior and decided to handle it himself. He met with Mustafa and offered him money to never see Arya again. He agreed and happily took the money from him. Arya wouldn't see him after that. It was weeks without seeing him. She didn't think she would ever see him again. With no choice, Arya was married to Jafar Kapur in 1884. While everyone was happy for them, Arya was miserable. She soon moved into Jafar's palace. He would shower her with jewels and precious gifts. Despite it all, Arya was unhappy. She still missed Mustafa. It had now been months without hearing from him. She worried something might have happened to him. After a year, he had snuck into the palace to finally see her. Arya was elated to see him again. He told her that her father had paid for him to stay away from her, and he was waiting for time to pass before seeing her again. Now that he was back, he promised to make everything better and asked her to run away with him. Arya explained she couldn't just leave without bearing a child for Jafar. He promised he would wait as long as it took. He stayed with her as long as he could. Then he snuck out before her husband came home. Jafar had no clue that he was even there. In 1887, Arya was pregnant. The pair was very excited to be expecting. Now that she was pregnant, she and Mustafa made a plan to run away after the birth. He was there when her water broke while her husband was away at work. Arya had given birth to a son. Then, minutes later, she had another son. After the twins were born, Arya couldn't just abandon them, but she couldn't take the both of them with her. So she only took one. She left everything else and ran away with Mustafa. Jafar had a feeling that she left with the poor man she had spoken about before. But he wouldn't search for her because she left him a son. He would tell her family she died in childbirth. Arya would live in poverty with Mustafa and her son Baljeet. Even though they weren't in luxury, she wouldn't have it any other way. Jafar would go on to raise his son with no knowledge of his other child. He named him Rohan. Help save the channel by donating. Your support helps.